Good day. This is Brother Medina from the Thuzian Institute of Religious Liberty, and we are having this special program in honor of Republic Day because our republic needs to be protected. So let us start right now with a word of prayer. Loving Father, please be with us as we present these facts to the public. Help everyone to be aware of these facts and help someone somewhere to deal with the problem of runoff voting before it is too late for us. Nevertheless, let your will prevail. These mercies we ask of you through Jesus Christ our Savior. Amen. The name of our topic is Anti-Republican Runoff Voting. Anti-Republican Runoff Voting. And all this highlights the fact that we are dealing with the current threat to our republic, because we are now facing one of the first major attacks upon our republican status as a nation. And this attack is leveled at us through the runoff sections of the Constitution Amendment Bill. Yes, my dear people. So let us first look at what a republic is. A republic is a type of governance that recognizes the rights and freedoms of citizens as inalienable. Yes, my dear people. And that means by inalienable that it is coming from outside of man, hence it is coming from God. So our rights and freedoms come from God. And this is what a republic points out. A republic also points out that the rights and freedoms of man are inviolable. That means it is not to be violated by government. But today we are facing an attack upon our republic. Furthermore, voting is a civil right for man. The facts are, here are what the founding fathers of the world's oldest and most stable republic, the United States, here are what they said in their Declaration of Independence, which are the gems or the foundations of republicanism. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. End of quote. Yes, my dear people. One group of the electorate must never have more chances at voting than the general electorate themselves to change the outcome of the initial will of the people in the sum total of the diverse voting in a general election. This is not more democracy. This is less democracy. This is also anti-republican. Now here is the founder of the Thuzian Institute of Religious Liberty, Brother Shannon Bartholomew, explaining to us what is wrong with the runoff section of the Constitution Amendment Bill.
Hello, I am Shannon Bartholomew, the Executive Director of the Thuzian Institute for Religious Liberty. Now, the runoff bill is in its final stage, and at great expense at that. I would like today to just speak about three particular violations that have been committed in getting this runoff proposal or this runoff bill to where it is at today. One, the first violation that have been committed is that this did not have the majority needed for such a bill with such significance to become law. It required a greater majority, not a simple majority. based on the nature of the bill, determine the kind of majority should be necessary to make it law. So the first violation that has been committed in getting this runoff bill to become law is that it had a simple majority for such a significant proposal, for such a significant bill. So the first violation is that the bill claimed that the runoff law will put majority win MPs into office. The government claimed, I'm saying it over, the government claimed that the runoff law will put majority MPs into office. Yet, the very runoff bill does not require a majority to become law. It only requires a simple majority. And a simple majority is not a significant majority. This is the first violation that have been committed so far, is that the percentage that it requires to make it law is very minimal. And with such a significant bill, it definitely required a greater majority than a simple majority. So, one, the government claimed that the runoff law will put majority MPs into office, yet the very runoff bill does not require a majority to become law. So the question is, why the majoritarian principle did not apply regarding the runoff bill becoming law? They appeal to the majoritarian principle for the actual function of the runoff, but yet still, when it comes to the runoff law, the runoff bill becoming law, the majoritarian principle did not apply or was not used by the government. And the question is why? Why? Look at how significant it is. Why wasn't there a greater majority than the simple to make it become law? And that's a violation. Violation number 2. No consultation before bringing the bill to Parliament. So there was no consultation before bringing the bill to Parliament on the very bill itself. It had no consultation. So no consultation before bringing the bill to Parliament, neither any consultation during its debate, even though many calls were made for consultation. So there are 2 wrongs in violation number 2. First wrong, no consultation had taken place, no public consultation existed on the very idea of the runoff. So there was no consultation before, neither was there any consultation during its debate in Parliament, even though many calls from the public was made to get consultation on it. So the question is asked, is consultation beneficial to the people or no? Why is it that the runoff had no consultation before or during its debate in Parliament? Is consultation beneficial to the people or not? Of course consultation is beneficial to the people, because the actual law itself, the actual runoff proposal itself, has to do with the people's employment of MPs or putting MPs into office. Why the employers of government was not consulted on a bill that changed how we employ MPs? So that's the next question that is led, or that is begging from the whole process. Why the employers of government, that's we the people, was not consulted on a bill that will change how we the people employ our MPs. This is violation number 2, my dear people. It is unfortunate that something so significant in the first instance required such a miniature majority for it to become law, first violation, and number 2, no consultation with we the people, and the very bill concerns how we employ our MPs or put them into office. Second violation, no consultation before or during. And so the question is why? Now when it comes to the third violation, before we go to it, let me just quote, or let me ask this question. The runoff bill will directly affect us, we the people. Why lock us out of the process? So here the bill is going to, has to do with we the people. It's going to directly affect we the people. Then why were we locked out of the process? Why the majoritarian principle was not used herein by allowing the majority of the people instead of a select few to get the bill passed. So when it is passed without going to the people, seeing how significant the bill is, the question has to be asked, why only this select few in the government and in the Senate to make it become law when the law itself is concerning us, we the people, who employ by the very mechanism of voting MPs and government into office? Could you remember that Prakash Ramadan not too long ago said that it was the bill, the runoff, was not discussed at the consultations. The very principle of runoff was not discussed at the consultations. Prakash Ramadan, the minister, the honorable minister in charge of legal affairs, and who was charged with the responsibility to commission the consultation and constitutional reform, he came and made that statement, confirming that there was no public consultations on the runoff principle or the runoff proposal at the consultations on constitutional reform. So look, it came out afterwards. So all the untruths that have been told to us before, look, it did not take place. In the committee stage in Parliament, in the Senate, Gerald Hadid stood up and said, he made a quotation referring to a certain consultation where Miss Merle or Dr. Merle Hodge was absent. And he said, that's the time when the runoff was discussed. So look, that was said by Gerald Hadid, a senator for the government. That was said during the committee stage. But look, it proved afterwards that he did not tell the truth. Because while Mr. Hadid said, and he quoted a statement referring to a consultation that Dr. Merle Hodge was not present at, and he said that the runoff was discussed there, look, Prakash Ramadan came afterwards and said it wasn't discussed at the consultations. And mind you, that very consultation that Mr. Hadid was referring to, I was there, and there was no discussion on runoff. Why all these untruths? And why such desperation to get this runoff become law, that it will not allow it to be consulted by the people or with the people? Next point, independent senators. Independent senators that was not elected by the people was allowed to propose an amendment to the runoff. So look at that. The independent senators, certain independent senators that was not elected by we the people, were allowed to craft an amendment to the runoff. Yet, we the people is not even allowed to have a say in the process, more so to have an amendment. It seems as though the independent senators has more power than we the people that have employed government that could decide on independent senators. This is unfortunate, my dear people. The independent senators seem to have more power than we the people, the employers of government. And although we employ government and put them there, yet all our cries have been neglected and rejected, and not even a say is allowed us. But the independent senators got more than a say. They got an amendment. Last violation, the process to making runoff, the runoff law was filled with procedural errors. So the process to making the runoff law was filled with procedural errors, which maybe is because of the structural errors of the actual bill itself. So when you look to the runoff bill, there are structural errors within it, but not only that, there have been structural errors committed in the process to getting it become law. And that's something that we the people need to pay attention to. If the process was undemocratic, and that was seen, we the people was not involved in it. If the process was undemocratic, the target will also be undemocratic. That's logical. You can't have an undemocratic process yet have a democratic target at it, or it will be legitimate. That's not logical. That can't work. My dear people, we need to wake up. Members of the public of Trinidad and Tobago, we need to wake up. Because what has come and happened here in this whole affair of making the runoff law says a lot to us, we the people. And it also said a lot to the government. Because it said to the government that the process, the undemocratic process that was used, herein they were successful. And the thing it's in its final stage, and we are yet to have the assent of the president on it. But it's saying to us, look what the government have done and gotten through it. Therefore, it will say to them, that's what you could get through it as a government. But what is it saying to us, we the people? It's saying to us that look at how they have disregarded our calls. Look at how they've disregarded our protests. And regardless of the amount of persons that have been involved in the process, it ought not to have been disregarded. And so this says a lot to us. That we need to wake up, and we need to see the type of government that sits in office, and the way they have disregarded our voice, the way they have disregarded the will of the people, and the way it is going to be disregarded if runoff become law, means we the people have to wake up. And we need to get more engaged in the process of the governance of the affairs of our country. And if we don't do that, our rights and freedoms will leave us.
Yes, my dear people, all that Brother Shannon said was true and wonderful. You see, the UNC is the only party that can be said to be the one that will benefit from the runoff voting section of the Constitution Amendment Bill. The facts are, this bill, that section of the bill, is meant to stop the influence of third parties in a general election, an influence that splits votes. And it is to make sure that the UNC votes are not split, causing the PNM to win. We have plenty evidence that this is the actual mania and problem of the UNC and the PP government. Their problem has always been the splitting of votes. Let us now look at this actual clip where you have the Prime Minister in her words speaking about dividing or splitting the votes.
The Prime Minister urges traditional UNC supporters not to split the votes. Speaking on the People's Partnership platform in Gasparillo last night, she pointed out that history has shown that in a three-party race, the votes always sway in favor of the PNM. Mrs. Prasad Bissessa says the crab-in-barrel syndrome has to stop.
We divide. Each time we rise, they put us down. Tonight I ask you, do not divide the vote. a house divided against itself will never stand. Can never stand. Will never stand.
Let me quote for you the actual words of the Prime Minister today. And I'm quoting from this document from the internet here, from a newspaper, Local Government Elections, October the 21st. I quote, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar said Monday that she warned supporters against splitting the vote, but was largely ignored. And the result was a People's National Movement, PNM, victory at the polls. The People's Partnership's campaign theme was to encourage supporters to come back home and not vote for the Independent Liberal Party, ILP, led by Jack Warner. Addressing supporters at Renzi Complex, Couva, after learning of the election result, Persad-Bissessar said, I warned you, you know, I warned you. I said the split vote, the Green will not win. Who won? PNM. And let us not make that mistake again in St. Joseph. Why, she said, why do we continue to make this mistake every time? Why? She said, on this campaign trail, I warned you. Some listened. Today the history is recorded. Today the numbers are telling us if we split the vote, PNM will come back. And if the PNM come back, laptop gone. End of quote. And this is your Prime Minister speaking, showing that the concern of the UNC has always been the splitting of votes. This is their problem. And this is what the runoff voting section of the Constitution Amendment Bill is to deal with. It is to deal with splitting of votes. All the philosophical positions given by those political analysts and those those people who explain the Constitution and so on, all these high platitudes and explanations that they give overlooks the plain on-the-ground facts. The plain on-the-ground facts is that the runoff voting is supposed to benefit the UNC or the People's Partnership. And that is what it is all about. That is as simple as it is. No big kind of philosophy, just that simple point. Now, we have a document here, and this document tells us about the St. Joseph by-elections. It says here, NACTA on St. Joseph by-elections. Split votes put PNM in the lead. And this is what the UNC and the People's Partnership knew all along. This is what they were afraid of. So they knew that the St. Joseph elections, the St. Joseph by-elections was coming up, and they were afraid that they would lose it. And now, with a new general elections in 2015, and being afraid that they would lose it, they crafted this runoff section of the bill to ensure that they will get a second chance at winning back votes that went to the ILP to make sure that the PNM doesn't benefit from split votes. And here is what the NACTA poll tell us in this document. I quote, in terms of actual support, the poll's findings show the PNM getting 36% of popular support and the UNC coming in second place with 31% and the ILP polling third at 23%. NACTA also found that the split vote continued to work against both the UNC and the ILP. According to the poll, three-way division in the votes favors the PNM's candidate to win, as traditional PNM supporters are solidly backing the ILC with limited crossover from traditional UNC supporters. In terms of actual support, the poll's findings showed the PNM getting 36% of popular support, with the UNC coming in second place with 31%, and ILP polling third at 23%. NACTA also found that the split vote continued to work against both the UNC and the ILP. According to the poll, the three-way division in the votes favors the PNM's candidate to win as traditional PNM supporters are solidly backing the Lai Singh with limited crossover from traditional UNC supporters. The findings suggest that if the votes were not split, the Lai Singh would have virtually no chance of wresting the seat that was held by the UNC. The other candidates are drawing significant support, though the Lai Singh remains in the lead for tomorrow's election. The poll showed he is far from obtaining a majority of votes, but is favored to get the most support. So in other words, he wouldn't get the majority of votes. He wouldn't get 50% of the votes, but he will be the large amount of votes that will make him win. And this is what they saw from the NACTA poll. They knew that. Let's just look at the actual results of the St. Joseph by-elections. Observe the fact that the runoff voting is meant to help the PP or UNC get a second chance at a type of a second election, which is what the runoff election is all about, to regain votes lost to a third party, namely the ILP, that they could win the marginal seat from the PNM. Observe this fact. You will see this fact when you look at this chart here and see the results of the St. Joseph by-election. You'd observe that the PNM's votes were 6,357, which was 44.72% of all cast votes. You'd observe that the UNC votes were 5,577, or 39.23% of cast votes, and the ILP votes were 1,976, 13.90% of cast votes. Now, if you combine the UNC and the ILP together, let's say the government had a chance with a runoff voting to campaign again and try to bring home UNC voters from the ILP back to the People's Partnership. Observe, if she had some measure of success, observe what would have happened. Combine UNC and ILP votes, UNC 5,577, ILP 1976. Together they would give the UNC or the People's Partnership 7,553 votes, more than the PNM 6,357. This would be 53.13% of the cast votes, giving the UNC more than 50%. So therefore, this clearly shows us that runoff voting is to benefit the UNC, since not the PNM, but the UNC has had problems with split votings since way back in 2007, when the COP went to the polls alone. This means that in a runoff election, in a marginal seat, the UNC can seek to recapture votes lost to a third party, the ILP, and thus gain a second chance to beat the PNM and recapture that seat and thus stay in government. That's what the runoff section of this bill is all about. That's what it is all about, to help one political party. Now notice these facts. One man, one vote will be a thing of the past, but only in the marginal seats. Yes, my dear people. It will now be one man, two votes. And this will be only for a small portion of the electorate, the marginal seats, while the majority, the larger electorate, is forbidden by law to have a second chance at voting. And this majority will obviously not be able to change what the minority has done when the minority has a second chance to change the outcome of the elections by the majority voting. Yes, my dear people. If we look at these facts here, you would see that the electorate, look at this chart here, let's assume that the electorate of the country is 800,000 people, as you see there on your chart. But the votes that have been cast are 600,000. So we have 600,000 votes. Out of that 600,000, let us say you have 2,000, out of that 600,000, let us say you have 20,000 for 3 marginal seats. That will give us 60,000 votes of those 3 marginal seats. Take away that 60,000 votes and you would have 540,000 votes remaining. Now what do we see here in this chart? Observe, 600,000 people in that election has only 1 chance. But 60,000 people have 2 or 3 chances, while the remaining 540,000 people had only 1 chance. So you're giving a small amount of people a chance to change the outcome of a general election and the initial will of the people as the sum total of the differences in votings. You are allowing only 60,000 people to have a second or third chance, while 540,000 people had only 1 chance. This is obviously wrong. This is not democracy. This is not more democracy. This is less democracy. This is also anti-Republican. Yes, my dear people. What is wrong, therefore, with the runoff section of the Constitution Amendment Bill? Number 1, it gives only one party, the UNC, that has a problem with split votes, a second chance to recover lost votes from the ILP. Thus, this runoff section favors the UNC or the PP government. That is what is wrong with it. Also, this amendment bill, the runoff voting section, it robs the ILP voters and others of a second chance in the marginal seats, while only giving 2 parties a second chance at the polls. So we ask ourselves the question now, what is wrong with the runoff section of the Constitution Amendment Bill? Well, point number 1, it gives only one party, the UNC, that has a problem with split votes, a second chance to recover lost votes to the ILP. Thus, it favors the UNC, hence the People's Partnership. Point number 2, it robs the ILP voters and others of a second chance in the marginal seats, while giving only 2 parties, the PNM and the UNC, a second chance at the polls in those marginal seats. Point number 3, the changes recommended by an independent senator to the runoff part of the bill can rarely or hardly work. Thus, third parties are still denied a second chance. In fact, you have independent senators who are not elected by the people, and an independent senator should only vote in favor of a bill if he recognizes the majority of people wants it. But if he recognizes a large section of the populace, half of it or almost half, doesn't want it, since he's not elected by the people but is an independent senator, he should obviously vote against it. Now, why did these 3 independent senators vote in favor of this runoff section and of this bill also? Let's look at one of them, and let's see that this senator himself already had a view that third parties were wrong. I am making a quotation from the Saturday Express, the 6th of September, and here is a statement here, constitutional reform controversy. This is what we have been told about the independent senator that made the proposed changes to the runoff. Okay? I quote, his name is Mahabir. Mahabir's statement during an interview published in The Guardian on November the 7th have been quoted in the wake of his amendment and support for the bill. In that interview, he reportedly said, quote, "We know beyond any doubt that the country has no room for a third force." He also said this, "The third party will always be the spoiler." He noted, adding that the COP had caused the UNC to lose marginal seats it had won in the previous election. So here is this independent senator before having a view that a third party is a spoiler. No wonder why, when he's called upon now to deal with the runoff, he, instead of rejecting it altogether, he also agrees that a runoff was a good thing and proposed certain changes to make it look good, but changes that cannot work, and that still denies a third party a chance from competing in that election if his proposal doesn't work. So again, this clearly shows you what he did was wrong. And point number 4, the runoff section robs the general electorate of a second chance to determine the outcome of a general elections, which is the initial will of the people based upon the differences of voting. Now, this is how the runoff section of the Constitution Amendment Bill destroys the status of our republic. A republic includes all groups, majorities and minorities in its benefits. But the runoff section only grants minorities a second voting benefit while the majorities are denied this benefit. This clearly is anti-republican. B, elected governments that represent the people is the creation of a republic. In other words, the idea of a republic creates this fact: elected governments that represent the people. Thus, voting is a republican civil right. Yes, my dear people. Since this civil right is denied to the majority of the electorate to practice a second time, but is only given to a minority, this is obviously anti-republican. And point number C, republicanism gives all political parties a chance at the total elections. But some third parties are denied chances in some of the elections by this runoff voting. This also is anti-republican. And so, our great republic is under attack. Our great republic is facing blows from a section of this Constitution Amendment Bill, the runoff section. This is so very bad. This is so very wrong. This must be stopped. Can we count upon the government to withdraw that section? Hardly likely. Can we count upon the president not to accede to that section of the bill, or not to accede to this bill? Maybe, maybe not. We do not know. But somebody must do something to stop this bill from becoming the law of Trinidad and Tobago. Our great constitution has been trivialized for one party to deal with a marginal seat to come back in elections. Our great constitution have been so trivialized. And these laws that have been given to us are parading as more democracy, when they are not more democracy. They are anti-republican, they are anti-democracy. We call upon the government, we call upon the president, we call upon people who hear this film to do something to save our republic from destruction. And may God have mercy upon us if this doesn't happen. And so, my dear people, may we truly gain success in this whole thing changing. And may God bless you until we meet again. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.